What's going on? Clayton Sayfie here with Chris Balas and Austin Fox. We are from the Wolverine.com. Head over to the Wolverine.com, use the promo code Blue60, get our premium content, become a member of our message board for 60 days for free. So check us out at the Wolverine.com. But fellas, another week, another discussion about Jim Harbaugh and the future of Michigan football. So we'll get into that. We will talk about some of the latest news with guys leaving the program here. Both to the NFL and to the transfer portal. And then we'll get into the college football playoff, the hot topics of the week around college football here, since Michigan hasn't played in a few weeks. But we'll start with Jim Harbaugh, Chris, where we continue to basically wait and, see what happens. And that him and Ward Manuel met, I believe, Wednesday night. And there's no announcement. So, possible negotiation, I guess exactly what is going on from what you're hearing.
Sure sounds like it, and they were in there for a long time, from what we understand, 4 to 5 hours. And as it was explained to me, there's a lot to talk about, and there certainly is. Nobody expected this type of a year, not just the COVID stuff, but what we saw on the football field. And it looks like a program, frankly, that's sliding a little bit backwards. And no all Big Ten guys on any of the first three teams. I think offense or defense. Is that right, Austin? I know that you.
I think Quiddy Pay made the
Yeah.
defensive team, but nobody on offense.
Okay, yeah, so there you go. And Kwity Paye missed a few games. That was probably one of those things. He didn't put up huge numbers, but that was probably one of those things where, okay, this guy's a senior, and so regardless, it's not good enough. And it really starts with the quarterback, and you go down the list and of guys that underachieved, and it starts though at the top. Those guys were not put in good positions to win this year. We heard all about the oneness on the team that was a bunch of BS, frankly. You had a bunch of guys that acted like malcontents, and that's going to happen when you lose guys. But it's still one of the biggest mysteries of the year is what the hell happened from week one, right, to week two in that Michigan State game where they looked like they didn't want to be there. Maybe it was as simple as they come out to an empty Michigan stadium and felt like it was a practice. I don't know. But it played out that way for most of the rest of the year until Cade McNamara gave him a shot in the arm. But it does look like, since now that I switched the subject, I'll go back, guys. It does look like it's playing out where, Jim Harbaugh coming back is a real possibility with a pay cut and a lot of money for assistant coaches, and there's going to have to be some staff change, some change up on the staff. So I think that's where it is right now. But I still think all options are on the table until he signs. And the longer it goes, that's one thing we've been saying, guys. The longer it goes, the less likely that seems to become, because other options might open up that Jim Harbaugh can explore. So we'll have to see what happens here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, this isn't based on any inside info, obviously, but my gut feeling is that he'll come back. But you've been saying all along, this is 50-50. This could go either way, and I think pretty much everybody is ready for this whole thing to be wrapped up. Everybody in the Michigan fan base, that is, because it's gone on long enough. If Jim Harbaugh is to return and serve as Michigan's head coach again in 2021, you mentioned it, but a lot of staff changes will have to occur to get the appropriate guys in who are going to coach these guys up. And Harbaugh needs to act like the guy that he was in 2015 and 2016 and early in his Michigan tenure, because it's been talked about over and over, but that fire and that passion is gone, and it really hit rock bottom in a lot of ways. This past year, you mentioned the Minnesota opener when Michigan crushed them on October 24th, and I don't think that Minnesota team was as bad as a lot of people made them out to be. We saw them take Wisconsin to overtime yesterday. They improved as the year went on. Michigan got a lot worse as the year went on, and mentally the guys and the coaches just weren't in a good place. So again, if Harbaugh is to return again next year, I think that's the first thing that he needs to fix in terms of culture and mentality and getting these guys ready to play on a weekly basis.
You talked about that, the fire. Did you see Matt Campbell yesterday on the sideline at Iowa State? Reminded me of a young Jim Harbaugh, freaking out. I loved it, man. I didn't care. And if he'd gotten a 15-yard flag, it would have been something else. You can rest assured that Jim Harbaugh would have, right? But Big Ten does not like him and has not done Michigan any favors since he's been there. Let's be completely honest with that. Not making excuses for the guy, because his teams aren't doing the little things that you need to win. But watching Matt Campbell yesterday in that Iowa State game going crazy, I was like, man, don't you love that passion? And guys like him, guys like Pat Fitzgerald, that's who Jim Harbaugh used to be. Let's see if he can get it back and see if he has that opportunity.
Well, and let's see if the Iowa State administration sits down with Matt Campbell, and that would be the next conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I don't know about that. And you know what? And if in the past, if the Michigan administration had tried to sit down with Jim Harbaugh and said, "Hey, you need to tone it down a little bit," Jim Harbaugh would have said, "Kiss my ass." I am Jim Harbaugh. Can I say that, Clay, on this show?
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Then I've seen some of the stuff out there online now. So, and he would have said, "Hey, man, this is what you got with me. This is what you hired me for, and this is who I am. You're not going to neuter me." And hopefully, we see some of that spit and vinegar, man, from that guy again, because that's the Jim Harbaugh that everybody loved and thought they were getting here in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, if it was the case where the administration actually did that and he actually listened to them for that, then that would mean he changed into like it would have just indicated that he changed a little bit or changed philosophies or whatever happened. Um, yeah, so in terms of a timeline, just to kind of wrap up this before we move on to the next topic, um, the season's over, signing day's over. They meet Thursday. Um, if this goes past the 7 to 10 day window, or even past Christmas, then you start to wonder, well, what is really going on? Because you can get something done. It's not like you can't get paperwork done or an agreement done. And then you start dipping into January, and what I think the last games of NFL are January 3rd or something like that.
Right.
Then you're moving into the territory of where he's talking to other people and could be fielding other offers if he gets them. That's just a if situation. I think he would get some interest at the very least. But this timeline, you've mentioned it a few times, Chris, about how every day that goes by, basically the odds of him returning and Michigan having to move on from him go up. And I think if we get into mid this week, past Christmas, it might be by the hour where you might start hearing rumors here and there about him meeting with a certain team or something like that. So I think the odds go significantly down as this thing progresses here if it keeps dragging out.
Every day that goes by, right, and every week that goes by, other opportunities could open, and everybody says, "Oh no, Jim Harbaugh, no, the NFL won't be interested in him." Well, there might be some team out there. You look at his record. What is he, 70% in the NFL, which is unbelievable, frankly. Second to only John Madden, I guess.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, at least that's what the message boards say. I don't know, and everything on the message boards that we hear is true, of course. And so, but he did a great job there. Now it remains to be seen: is he the same guy, and would he be the same guy in the NFL? This job is not easy at Michigan. You're swimming upstream, guys, and we know it. We saw it with John Beeline, and it burned him out to the point where you're recruiting. You're trying to do things the right way in some murky waters there, guys, swimming with the sharks, and it is harder and harder. But one thing you can't do is, settle for, like on the recruiting trail, go get the low-hanging fruit that, okay, these kids are good but not great, and you can't win with them. Although at the same time, I'll say this, they can be better than they've been with the talent they've had. Period, end of story. We saw what Pat Fitzgerald did with Northwestern against Ohio State. When you get those guys playing, man, frothing at the mouth and playing as a team, we used to see it under the Bo Schembechler teams. Lloyd Carr had great talent here. Even the kids that weren't as highly recruited and highly rated played their asses off, and that's something that we haven't seen. That's what's up to the head coach to get these guys to do. But again, you're right, man. The longer it goes, the more uncertainty there's going to be. I know that it's taking its toll on the coaches in the building and some of the kids. So hopefully they get this thing settled one way or the other. And we can move on and get this thing going.
Quickly, that Mike Hankwitz is a hell of a defensive coordinator too.
And I love that guy. I talked to him in 2003, I think it was, when he was at Arizona as the defensive coordinator. It might have been when he took over to be the de facto head coach there for a while after somebody got fired. But this guy played for Bo in 1969, and I knew then, man, everything that I'd heard about him. I believe he was Bill McCartney's defensive coordinator at Colorado when they won their national championship. And boy, and I wondered, man, how the hell did this guy never end up at Michigan? He would have been a great fit. And look at his defense and how hard-nosed they are. Look what they did to Ohio State yesterday and confused Justin Fields, man. Shout out to that guy. He's retiring. That was one of my most memorable conversations for Where Are They Now? There are a handful. That guy is first class. Wish him all the best. I'm sure he's watching this podcast.
I'd love to know how many teams have held Ohio State to 22 points or fewer over the past 8 years or so since Urban Meyer got there in 2012. I bet it's very, very few. And then you also have to take into account also how poorly Northwestern recruits, and from a recruiting ranking standpoint, that they don't have 4- and 5-star talent on their defense. So it just goes to show that it's not always about the Jimmies and the Joes, but if you have the appropriate coaches in place, you can win and succeed at a high level.
Make no mistake, those kids are football players, though, and they may not be 4- and 5-star guys, but they are in our hearts, guys, and that's what. And that's what I mean. They play with it. They play their asses off for their coach and for their coaches and for their teammates. Man, frankly, you're a little bit jealous watching that this year if you're a Michigan fan, and we should never ever have to say that, guys, ever.
Well, and think of Pat Fitzgerald, what he was as a player. Just, from what I know about him and seeing documentaries and watching highlights, he was a hard-nosed, tough football player. That's exactly how his teams play. Jim Harbaugh, when he was a player, was a linebacker-type mentality playing the quarterback spot. His teams have always had that mentality, it seems like, until late. And, I guess you wonder exactly what the problem is. Let's move into some of the guys leaving, and this has to do with some of that, maybe the culture of what's going on within the building. Obviously, there's a few departures that make complete sense, and a few of them that were all but formalities. Jalen Mayfield moving on. Props to him for coming back. He sprained his ankle. I don't think he's going to be as high of a draft pick as many people think. Kwity Paye obviously is gone, and that was just very obvious, but he did sign with an agent this week. We talked about Zach Carpenter last week. Christian Turner to the transfer portal, fifth string, makes sense. Will Hart, who would have had to come back and be probably the second string punter as a sixth-year senior. He's going to go play elsewhere. And then there will be more, obviously, and that's the way it's going in college football and the way that some of the rumblings have trended here. But your guys' thoughts, I guess, just on kind of, the guys leaving the program here.
Mayfield didn't really come back. He came back for a couple games, and then he was practicing a little bit and then decided to hang it up, I guess, and that's become a Michigan problem too, guys missing bowl games. And I'm not saying that he was healthy enough to play 100%. I don't know that for sure. However, when family members start tweeting things and everything else, that leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So, but I wish him all the best. The guy had a great game against Ohio State, had a solid first year. We won't get to see enough of him, and that's become a trend here at Michigan, guys that are way too anxious to leave. And again, that goes back to, okay, what's the expectation here? And, people can get on me, and they will. I'm old school, whatever. But you know what? When Jake Long came back for his fifth year, I never guessed. It never occurred to me that he would leave, even though he would have been probably a first-round pick. And I miss those days. And you still see those days at a lot of these programs, guys. You still see it at Ohio State. Guys playing bowl games, even though they're going to go a hell of a lot higher than some of these Michigan kids and these captains. And I know, oh, this guy was banged up. There's a difference between banged up and being injured and being hurt and being injured, right? So, yeah, I'm a little bit saucy about this subject. So we've heard Cam McGrone's going to be moving on. More power to him. We've heard about phone calls between parents and coaches. It gets back to John Beeline saying one time, I was at a function when he was speaking at a church, and he said in front of a bunch of Catholics, he said, if I ever went into coaching again, I'd coach at a prison so I wouldn't have to deal with any parents. And of course, he brought the house down. But I get it. I understand it. It's tough now in this day and age. So you've really got to do your homework on the recruiting trail too, and understand and get these kids that really want to be here. And I thought it was telling when Jim Harbaugh said about the in-state offensive linemen they signed, Raheem Anderson and Giovanni Alhadi. He said these kids, it's important to them that Michigan is good. We aren't seeing enough of that from these kids these days.
Not enough guys lately take enough pride in wearing the Michigan uniform. It's a privilege and it's an honor, and I don't think a lot of guys on this team view it that way. You talked about guys sitting out bowl games a few years ago and guys, checking out and opting out of the season. You talked about Mayfield. Obviously, we fully expected him to leave, seeing as how he was had announced prior that he was leaving anyway. Will Hart wasn't a surprise at all at punter. Clayton, you mentioned it, but he likely would have been the backup next year behind Brad Robbins, who would have been a redshirt junior once again. Christian Turner at running back is not a surprise whatsoever, the redshirt sophomore. He opted out as well prior to this year, before apparently playing in one game this year. I don't ever remember seeing him on the field, though. So I think the writing was on the wall there. I think a lot of fans will think Zach Carpenter's departure is the biggest surprise of the bunch. He was starting the last few games this past year when Andrew Vastardis got hurt. But again, I think there's more going on behind the scenes there. He clearly didn't want to be here. So sure, we wish all these guys all the best, but I'm not going to lose any sleep whatsoever over any of these guys who transfer off of this year's team.
Yeah, and I think John Falk, when he was the equipment manager, would stand outside the locker room before they head out for the game, before they head out after halftime. He says, play hard, I think play smart or something like that, and play for Michigan. The playing for Michigan part, has been lacking. And in that, you see Kyle Pitts, the All-American Florida tight end, is not going to play in Florida's bowl game. You see it other places around the country, but, it just seems to be a problem. And when you're at a place like Michigan, too, and maybe that's the arrogance, I guess, that we've been around. But at a place like Michigan, you don't expect it, and it really shouldn't be the case. But, it is. And I guess we'll see who all leaves. I mean, we could see double digits at this point. We've already seen about 5. And you mentioned a 6th. We have breaking news on the college football playoff. It is, as expected, the Final Four will be number 1, Alabama, number 2, Clemson, number 3, Ohio State, and number 4, Notre Dame. So Notre Dame gets to lose by 50 to Alabama. This is what I expected it to be. But, man, it's like, to me, Ohio State was the team I didn't like in there because they play 6 games only. If you look at Texas A&M, their better win or their best win is Florida, which I think is better win than Indiana. But this kind of just seems to have been what makes sense, I guess.
Makes sense for ratings and at least in the first quarter, first half, because if you thought that Clemson beat the crap out of Notre Dame, watch what Alabama does to them, guys. Alabama's the best team in the country, and it's going to be brutal. I don't think that Notre Dame's going to go out there with any confidence whatsoever after what Clemson did to them with their full team. And I want to make something very clear here. I appreciate Notre Dame and the way that they operate. I know there are people who hate them. Back when I was in school and Notre Dame was, beating Michigan 3-4 times in a row before Michigan turned it around. Yeah, you hate their guts. But I will say this. When I talking to Jerry Hanlon, Michigan's offensive line coach, he said, you know what? I always appreciated going head to head for a recruit with Notre Dame because I knew that it was going to be a straight up battle. Whereas, one of these Southern teams would come in there and they'd be recruiting a kid, think they had him, and then the next day they'd never hear from him again. So I give him credit for that. On the flip side, to hell with Notre Dame, right? As Bo Schembechler would say, you talk about Michigan arrogance, boy. They take it to another level, and their fans hate Michigan, and so be it. It's probably because they're a lot more like them than they care to admit. And anything else goes back, 100 and something years to Fielding Yost. So get over it. But you know what? It's going to be a bloodbath, and I don't think they got it right. But at the same time, that's why they need more teams, guys. 4 to 8, or 8 to 12, 12 to 16. I think 16 teams would have been fine, or 12 teams would be fine. Give 4 teams a bye, right? Something like that. And that makes a hell of a lot more sense than sitting there and deciding which sacrificial lamb is going to be in that 4th spot. Because let's be honest, this isn't going to change anytime soon until the NCAA gets involved. And we both know that they have no balls, and that's not going to happen.
Who would you have put in? Who would your 4 be?
Well, Michigan 4th, of course.
You're not wrong.
I would probably put Texas A&M in. But again, I see the argument, but that, hey, Notre Dame beat Clemson, so they have the best win, even though that was a team missing the Heisman Trophy winner, or at least he should be, and half of its defense or a quarter of its defense. And Notre Dame fans are smart enough to know that. We read their stuff too. And a lot of them didn't want any part of Alabama because they know, it's going to be ugly. But you give them credit and for being there, and and everybody's like, well, why can't Michigan be like Notre Dame? And you make excuses and blah 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 blah. If Michigan had Notre Dame's schedule in some of those years and hadn't played Ohio State every year, it'd have been pretty damn similar. Let's be honest about that. Okay, it's not an apples to apples comparison. It is as close as you're going to find to one in college football, probably, but. Let's be honest here, it's just not the same.
I'd be furious if I were a Texas A&M fan. You look at their resume, they have that win over Florida, and like Clayton said, their only loss is to Alabama. They also have a win over a decent Auburn team. So if I'm an A&M fan, I would feel snubbed. You look at Ohio State's resume, I realize they haven't lost, but man, who did they beat? That Indiana win, it was obviously came down to the wire. If Michael Penix threw for 500 yards on Ohio State, imagine what Trevor Lawrence and Clemson are going to do. I think both of these playoff matchups are going to be blowouts. Alabama should roll Notre Dame, and I could easily see Clemson handling Ohio State, Northwestern, and Indiana. Both exposed a lot of Ohio State's flaws, but perhaps a better question is whether or not anybody outside of the states of Alabama and South Carolina are going to watch the national title, the Alabama-Clemson matchup, for what feels like, the fourth time in 6 years or whatever it is. All the cheating that goes on in college football is ruining the game we love, and it's made my passion and the way I care about the game go down every single year over the past 5 or 6 years or so.
You're just jealous.
That's not the case at all.
You're just jealous you can't be us. They hate us because they ain't us.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I would never. I'll tell you what, if Michigan operated the way that Alabama or Clemson did, I would stop covering Michigan football. Period. End of story. I'll say that right now.
I agree with you. It would be fun to cover one of those games, though, but one day. Yeah. So, basically, then the national title game, I think we all assume it's, as, we all kind of laid out there, will be probably Alabama-Clemson. I think Alabama's got a significant edge. I think they're the best team in college football as well. At the same time,
they'd be the best team in the NFC East. Right?
That's a bad division. Yeah. I wouldn't rule out Trevor Lawrence, though, in any of these games. He's a tough guy for being, as much as people want to call him a pretty boy. These big games, he's running the hell out of the ball. He's getting hit. He gets right up. He makes really good throws. He'll do well for the Jets next year, I think. But, yeah, I still take Alabama, but I think it'll be a pretty good game. It'll be entertaining. I'll watch it, Austin.
You think Jim Harbaugh would take Trevor Lawrence first with the Jets? I'm just kidding. That's terrible.
Hey,
is that foreshadowing?
You never know, man. Stranger things have happened. So, no, I'm just kidding. So, go ahead, Austin. Sorry, I didn't mean to butt in there.
No, Clayton, I don't blame you one bit for tuning in because deep down I still love college football a lot and watching these big games, but I just don't have the same interest that I used to. Even 10 years ago, it was a lot different. It's the same teams every year, and we all know why. And again, it's ruining the sport. So if I don't see 1 second of a lot of these playoff games or the title game, it's not going to break my heart one bit.
What else would you be doing, though? Sorry. What else would you be doing, Austin?
Anything. That's just it. I feel dirty watching these teams because they're there for all the wrong reasons.
He knits these little trolls and hands them out. I got a couple for Christmas last year. So I don't think he heard that. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't, and I think I'm glad I didn't hear it.
All right.
Yeah, so that'll be entertaining. So everyone's got Alabama then?
Yes.
Yeah, and I won't watch it. I didn't watch it last year, I'll be honest. I think I watched Goodfellas for the 110th time or something like that. I was like, you know what? This guy got this. This guy got this. One of those guys in the playoff, and I won't mention a team, he was illegally sent a plane ticket to visit unofficially and ended up going to a different school. So one of the coaches was waiting at the airport for him. And he's like, where the hell are you? And he's like, oh, I'm in, I'll say Wyoming. I'm in Wyoming because my boy's up here. And, it's like, that's the kind of crap that goes on, man, that just makes you shake. And that's nothing. That is nothing compared to some of the stuff that we've heard. I am going to write a book someday, guys, on the shenanigans that go out there, So when I do and I get shot and killed by some SEC alum or something like that, there'll be a hell of a long list of suspects here because those people are a little bit passionate about their football.
Yeah, and when people ask on the message board for where's your evidence, well, you have laid out over the years as somebody who, even before I worked here was following that and interested in that because of what goes on behind the scenes. You have laid out bits and pieces here and there. Also, I have joked that you guys hired me to become the guy, and I'm, behind the scenes right now putting together a big dossier on the whole scandal. So
yeah, with that out there, we appreciate your contributions, and we need you on our team. We don't want you to disappear like Jimmy Hoffa, man.
So that's why you were watching Goodfellas during last year's title. It all adds up now.
Billy Bats, baby. That's right.
All right, so Christmas time here. What's is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Hell yeah, it is. And
I agree.
Anybody who says otherwise can, it's definitely a Christmas. Have you seen that Christmas ornament, by the way, of somebody made a Christmas ornament of John McClane in an air duct, with his face in the lighter. Pretty damn cool. So have you seen that movie, Austin, or has it not come out in Westphalia yet?
I actually haven't. No, I've never seen any of them. So
Is this a joke?
No, it's not a joke. I've never seen Die Hard.
Okay,
All
we're
right, you
gonna
gotta watch it before.
play.
Yeah.
Get his ass out, and
I'll rent it on VHS.
probably, yeah.
Only
I
happening.
hear they're opening a new Blockbuster in Westphalia.
Yeah, whatever that is.
Yeah.
I will be watching. I think I'm planning on watching it like this week here. I try to watch it every year right before Christmas. Austin, you got to watch it. I'll send you a tape or something.
I'll be
But,
watching National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with Clark Griswold and Chevy Chase instead.
You'll
The
be
ultimate
watching,
Christmas
you'll be
movie.
watching Steel Magnolias.
That's
and
a close second.
And he doesn't know what that is either, Clay.
No,
he probably
I don't.
thinks he does. Okay, so
Clay doesn't know what
let's
that
wrap
is.
this up, guys. We've gone too far.
Yep. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Hopefully everybody catches Die Hard, including Austin here before Christmas. But you got your Final Four. We got your talk here on Harbaugh. We'll continue to wait. We'll continue to monitor hourly, daily, weekly as it continues at thewolverine.com. Use the promo code BLUE60 to join our message board. Get all the insider updates for 60 days for free. We'll see you next time.